It's May 31st, 2019. Dylan Brady and Laura Les, better known as the musical duo 100 Gecs, just released their debut album 1000 Gecs. They began the year as virtual unknowns, but this album was about to change that. Seemingly overnight, thanks to SoundCloud and Twitter, this 23-minute, 10-song collection would become an internet sensation, finding itself as a mainstay on critics' best of lists. John Caramanica of the New York Times gave 1000 Gecs the top spot in his best albums of 2019 list, calling it the sound of internet splatter. After the last decade, why wouldn't you put everything in a blender and start over? According to The Independent, the album helped consolidate the eclectic 2010s hyperpop style by taking the genre to its most extreme. Other critics have debated this sentiment, stating that 1000 Gecs doesn't fit snugly in any one specific genre. New York Times calls 1000 Gecs playfully futuristic genre mashing. Rolling Stone, who put the album in their top 20 albums of 2019, says it manages to sound like a billion different things. While the topic of genre may be disputed, what's not really disputed is that the album is downright weird.
The music on 1000 Gecs is assembling one of the weirdest and wildest combinations of sounds I've heard this year.
John Perellis, the chief popular music critic at the New York Times since 1988, who also put the album in his top 10 albums of the year, claimed that 2019 was the triumph of the weird, saying, quote, "The best pop of 2019 didn't try to reach everyone. It was the work of bedroom studio conspirators, of songwriters confronting their traumas and aspirations, of old hands challenging themselves and newcomers determined to warp accepted boundaries." Speaking about 100 Gecs specifically, he says, quote, "Now and then, between the whiz-bang musical one-liners and non-sequiturs, 100 Gecs lingered just long enough over an earworm of a pop verse to prove that they could slow down and write more standard songs if they weren't having so much fun." Laura Les and Dylan Brady, in the process of having fun making new music and sound, never expected their debut album to blow up like it did. Laura even went on to say jokingly, "You might regret listening to it." But against all odds, the duo produced an album that would lead to sold-out headline shows, hundreds of millions of streams, and above all, a unique outlying sound in the expansive sea that is pop music. So who exactly are these genre-bending maniacs? Buckle up, because this is the beauty of 100 Gecs. Laura Les, unlike her sound, grew up in the relatively quiet St. Louis suburb of Webster Groves. Born to a mom who works in cosmetics and a dad who works in heating and cooling, she only really got to know the two of them one at a time, due to them splitting when she was only in preschool. Growing up, she loved going to plays with her grandma, who had season passes to a big theater in St. Louis. Her favorite musical was Phantom of the Opera, which her grandma would take her to every season. One might think that seeing the actors perform on stage sparked something inside the young Laura. But when she was at her dad's home, she usually just pushed off his efforts of trying to get her into guitar. That would change in her teenage years, however, when she started to develop an interest in music after watching some YouTube videos.
What were you into as a kid?
I always had a computer in my room, so I think that was big for me. Web crawling and YouTube holes and stuff like that.
What kind of YouTube holes would you go down?
I used to watch like a lot of secret Pokemon videos, like if you go under the truck type stuff.
Yeah.
And they would always be like soundtracked with Nightcore tracks.
It's just a history that they might prove and when
Naruto AMVs.
their frozen fingertips against your burning lips.
For the first time, she picked up the guitar on her own accord and learned how to play Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Later, she would transition into writing her own songs, saying, "I just wanted to make new stuff." Laura had a creative mind, never sticking to conventional song structures, and instead choosing to write albums she described as 30-minute soups of ideas. In high school, she would transition to playing with a few bands around town, and she humorously recalls playing, quote, every stupid guitar solo cliche that she could. Eventually, she would move back to creating on her own because she could just be herself and make music that really intrigued her without the judgment of bandmates.
Hey, you little piss baby. You think you're so fucking cool? Huh? You think you're so fucking tough?
Throughout her teens, under the tag Oh Snow 1, Laura was a blooming songwriter, with music deeply becoming a part of her life. When she attended a house party one high school evening, she was about to meet someone who felt the exact same allure to music as her. As fate would have it, the other half of 100 Gecs was also in attendance.
Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Only one thing.
Not gonna be unlimited.
Making fun songs and being a good person.
Yeah, I love that. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Born outside of Chicago in Evanston, Dylan moved to St. Louis when he was only 6 months old. His parents, dad a carpenter, mom a jeweler, were originally from the Missourian city, and they decided it would be a better place to raise a child. As a kid, Dylan's dad got him into photography, which led to a keen interest in film. It was Dylan's childhood passion, and he even entertained the idea of going to film school one day. So the new transferring high school freshman eagerly signed up for his high school TV broadcasting class. Realizing he had an extra spot left on his schedule, he pondered what to sign up for next. Dylan thought about how he and his mom would often go to the symphony together. Why not try to sing the music he listened to there? So on that whim, he signed up for choir, a class that would turn out to be incredibly fun and life-changing for the teenage Dylan. The community, the class, and most importantly the teacher, David Cannon, made music seem accessible, even though Dylan had no previous training or experience. Soon, Dylan was singing, playing piano, and messing around with Logic Pro Tools, a popular digital audio workstation. He would take music all 4 years, and during his junior year, he formed an acoustic pop band with his friend Jacob, before transitioning into producing beats for his friends, inspired by Kanye's Dark Twisted Fantasy. Dylan was a natural when it came to production, and senior year he quickly made a name for himself as one of the local scene's premier producers, under the tag Little Bando.
Little Bando is in the building. Bando is in the building. Bando is in the building.
Even Laura, who went to a rival high school, had heard of him. At the aforementioned party where Laura and Dylan would meet for the first time, Dylan was asked to play one of the tracks he had made for his friend. And Laura, upon hearing Dylan's music for the first time, felt a mix of visceral inspiration and jealousy.
People were like, oh, play that song that you made with this other person. And Dylan played it, and I was like, I hate you.
Because it was so good.
It was good. Yeah, it sounded good. And I was like, fuck you.
And was this while you guys were at the same high school?
We didn't go to the same high school.
Just
Rival high schools.
Rival high schools.
Rivals.
Neighboring high schools.
Okay. And so you go home like, wow, that guy's music is
I
the
left
shit.
immediately. I was like, I have to get out of here. I have to go write music.
The two would see each other now and then after the party, and unlike that first night, they became good friends, bonding over shared music interests that not a lot of their peers shared, like nightcore, avant pop producer Oneotrix Point Never, Def Grip's ex-military, and the American composer John Zorn, who deliberately resists category. Although the Gecs didn't get into music until their early teens, the two now lived and breathed it. One day, Dylan recruited Laura as a vocalist for an upcoming punk band he envisioned as 9 Inch Nails meets Def Grips meets Beastie Boys. But the band broke before it could even begin. It was the classic senior year feeling of meeting a new friend, only for college to get in the way. The two went their separate ways to continue their education. Dylan staying local at Webster University, and Laura eventually moving north to study in Chicago. Both, at this point, were sure that they wanted music to be their life. While Laura stayed in Chicago for all 4 years, Dylan would eventually drop out of college. While he found some of his classes helpful, he mostly wanted to work on his own music. Through late 2014 and early 2015, pretty much all his attention and energy went to working on his debut album, All I Ever Wanted, which featured a young Night Lavelle and a then 19-year-old Kevin Abstract, founder of the group Brockhampton. He met both of these musicians pre-breakthrough through SoundCloud. The music streaming service functions more like Twitter than Spotify or Apple Music. While Spotify and Apple Music demand a digital music distributor to upload songs, on SoundCloud anyone can freely upload songs to their profile. Additionally, users can comment and share songs. This more social media-like approach to music has blossomed a lot of collaboration and community, in what many refer to as the SoundCloud Underground. The driving force behind this underground scene is the seemingly unassuming repost option. Acting essentially like a Twitter retweet, it's a powerful tool that can make virtually unknown songs popular very quickly. Think of Lil Nas X's Old Town Road, or Post Malone's White Iverson, even Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes, all SoundCloud uploads that went viral and acted as the catalyst for their status as household names. In the SoundCloud Underground, artists who would never meet each other otherwise collaborate and build their music foundation. So, thanks to SoundCloud, Dylan's debut album would feature the two future rap mainstays. All I Ever Wanted was released in the spring of 2015, and it did pretty well with tracks getting hundreds of thousands of plays. It made Dylan even more dedicated to his music, and soon he was juggling multiple projects at once. He formed the experimental pop group Cake Pop with some of his St. Louis friends, and was busy producing their first EP. Also, he would produce tracks for his St. Louis day ones, like Pretty,
Picture me rolling, picture me outside with my boombox.
Ravenna Golden,
I drag myself across the floor. I can't take this anymore.
and Lewis Grant. Additionally, he was working on his next solo EP, Choker. And to top it off, he would find himself in the process of forming 100 Gecs, which we'll get back to. All of this to say, there was a lot on his plate, and it left no room for school. When he failed an integral portfolio review, his response was to push off rescheduling it in favor of continuing to work on his own projects. His audio engineering program kicked him out shortly after, citing he wasn't dedicated enough. He would have no choice but to transfer programs, until his family took a summer vacation to California in 2016. Here, he would meet up with the rapper Lil Aaron, who had contacted Dylan after hearing All I Ever Wanted through SoundCloud. And when Lil Aaron offered up his couch to Dylan if he ever wanted to move out west and try music full time, Dylan saw it as the perfect opportunity to chase his dreams.
And your house was a hub for artists.
I mean, there's like a meme within my friend group of like, oh, so-and-so slept on Lil Aaron's couch. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I got the mini mansion, I wanted to give people a couch to sleep on, because I understood the power of like, if someone just lets you sleep on their couch, where you can take that.
On September 2016, instead of enrolling for the new college fall semester, he made the life-changing decision to drop out and move to the city where entertainers of all types flock to, Los Angeles.
What did your parents think of the whole thing?
Well, my mom and dad got divorced a while ago, so he's not super around, but my mom was pretty scared, it seemed. Unsure of what would happen, but seemed like accepting and supportive still, which is really good.
Yeah.
All the projects Dylan had been working on up until this point were relatively successful. His solo project Choker, Cake Pop's self-titled EP, and his debut album were all being praised by many in the SoundCloud community, Was he getting paid for them? No, but even so, it constituted as a relatively solid musical foundation, and it was enough for Dylan to pack his bags. After all, many of the artists who had featured on his album were chasing their dreams and blowing up because of it. Opposed to getting a regular 9 to 5, he would sell beats on SoundCloud to scrape enough money to buy food. Because of Lil Aaron, Dylan didn't have to pay for rent or any billing expenses, and therefore all of his time could be dedicated to music. In exchange, Dylan would help produce Lil Aaron's debut EP, Glowing Pains, a project that would turn Lil Aaron into somewhat of a household name.
He produced Drugs as well. He actually produced that.
Dylan Brady's Drugs.
Instead of standard trap beats, Lil Aaron was rapping on what was essentially punk rock. This blend of genre, although controversial, was successful. When it came to producing new sounds that would help blow up artists, Dylan seemed to have the magic touch. While producing Glowing Pains, Dylan was also welcome to use Lil Aaron's studio to develop his own projects, and Dylan went on to produce quality tracks at an astounding rate. So it's not surprising that he got noticed early on during his LA Gamble by Pigeons and Planes, a popular music discovery site run by Complex. Alongside Wi-Fi's Funerals and Lil Peep, Dylan Brady was featured in the video These Rappers Are Blowing Up Online. Through the Pigeons and Planes shoutout, he would soon be reached out by Cody Verdesillas, a talent manager. Cody would say of Dylan, "As soon as I entered his space, I was hooked." With Cody on his team, Dylan quickly found himself producing tracks for big league major labels. Now instead of the life as an underground SoundCloud artist, Dylan was starting to live the life of a professional producer. Soon, the famous LA-based Kenny Beats, who has worked with artists ranging from Ski Mask to Vince Staples, was inviting him over to his studio. A couple months later, Complex was calling him one of the most exciting and inventive songwriters the internet has produced. It would all culminate into Dylan signing to Diplo's label, Mad Decent.
It's definitely a place, it's an incubation place for new music and new ideas and new styles and new producers, and I'm proud of the whole team we have.
For many musicians, signing to a big label is the sign that you made it. Dylan was, for all intents and purposes, living his dream. The LA gamble had paid off. He got his own place in K-Town, and he and his St. Louis girlfriend, now soon-to-be wife, moved in together.
Sometimes I won't make anything for like a day or two, but other times I'll be like here 8-10 hours a day. If it's super late at night and I've just been making songs all day, I'll be kind of out of ideas and just not be so serious about making something, so that's kind of the time when some of the craziest shit comes about. I'm Dylan Brady and we are at my studio in Bedrock in Silver Lake, LA.
In 2018, under Mad Decent, he released his project Peace and Love, a cornerstone of his genre-mashing sound.
It's definitely different than the other releases. There's like rock shit, the 7-Eleven Jones, like a EDM song kind of, like a lot of weird combos of sounds, kind of, more so than previous music. I think with my sound, I really like the idea of not having anything that's like extraneous or unnecessary and doing the whole idea with as few elements as possible. In the beginning, it was like really dark and distorted stuff, all in minor keys and dark and stuff like that. And then lately, since I've got here in the last 2 years, it's definitely gotten brighter, doing more happy songs, and that feels good now. I'd like always listened to guitar music, like my dad always played that, and I don't know why I never thought to do that, but I just started playing piano and was in choir and did that kind of music stuff in the beginning. But my friend left a guitar at my apartment and I started playing that, and then he just said I could keep it, which is super sick. And I've just been messing around with that and trying to get better in the last like 2 or 3 years. That's been super fun.
Grammy Award-winning mixer Jeff Ellis, who has worked with Injury Reserve's Drive It Like It's Stolen, and Frank Ocean's Blonde, says of Dylan, "He is my favorite producer and artist. His range is crazy and he's able to bring out the best in every artist he works with." This is a sentiment that many share. Close collaborator Ravenna Golden says, "He's the first person that made me fully realize how far I could take my dreams." The other half of 100 Gecs, Laura Les, has this to say about her music partner.
Dylan is the first person who I've worked with that I've been like, we are like-minded.
That's amazing.
Able to bring out the best in artists, he's fostered an impressive roster of musicians all eager to work with him. Expanding from his St. Louis day ones, he was now working with the likes of Lil West, the promising upstart Tony Velour, and the neighborhood's lead singer Jesse Rutherford, who would go on to say, "The minute I saw him, I knew I wanted to be friends. Dylan can make music all day, every day, whether anyone else is contributing or not. It's just what he does." Complex put it nicely when they said of the producer, "His expanding track record has landed him in the position to push music forward, even if he's not always directly in the spotlight. Soon, he would be working with Charlie XCX to produce more experimental projects like Charlie and How I'm Feeling Now."
Which of course brings me to my #1 record. And what is that? What is that record? That is the new Charlie XCX record, Charlie. Man, pop record of the year, man. Amazing pop record. The future of pop music, in my opinion. A future that I think many people are just not ready for.
Dylan Brady was a key player in the experimental sound that would morph into the New York Times aforementioned triumph of the weird. With such a unique sound, one would think that Dylan would turn his head when it came to the topic of mainstream music. But in reality, he truly is open to any sound. For example, let's take a look at Imagine Dragons, who have had a mixed public image since they entered the mainstream. Slipknot frontman Corey Taylor insisted that Imagine Dragons had replaced Nickelback as the most hated band. The 1975's Matt Healy said songs like Radioactive by Imagine Dragons might as well be nothingness. Even Mark Foster, head of the band Foster the People, was joining in on the fun.
She heard that you guys had a ton of material that did not make it to Sacred Hearts Club. So what happens to that material?
We give it to Imagine Dragons.
Well, they're going to be here later today, so you guys just...
Here's Dylan's take on the Billboard #1 hit, Thunder.
I would argue there are some #1 songs that have not been good.
Which one?
Not Radioactive. What's the other one?
Thunder?
Yes.
Thunder! You don't think Thunder is good?
No. I can't.
If one of my friends made Thunder, I would be like, you are super good at making music and should definitely pursue this. Like, this is hella good. There's no way you can hear Thunder on a big-ass system and be like, that song fucking sucks.
Dylan's magic.
His openness to all sound, even mainstream, is important to crafting his own unique sound. From sole producing everything from Josh Pan's album This Car Needs Some Wheels, to pioneering Jesse Rutherford's new sound in his album Born to Be Blonde, Dylan Brady was doing it all. It got to the point where it was tough finding time to work with so many artists. But it's what he loved doing. He was living the dream as a small, successful LA artist. Had you heard his name before? No, probably not, but that's the way it goes for many professional artists, especially producer-oriented ones. Dylan Brady was a hidden gem in the wide, expansive sea of music. And after successfully conquering his dreams, he lived happily ever after.
My boy's got his own ringtone.
And then one day, he got a call from his hometown friend, Laura Les, saying something about a mixture of Minecraft and music. This call would change everything. Instead of the sunny LA, Laura Les found herself in the much colder city of Chicago. Being in the new city was a tough transition for the artist, but music helped her get through it. Originally, she wanted to go to school for music theory and songwriting, but it was a challenging program to jump into with no prior theoretical knowledge. So she transferred into the acoustic engineering program instead, which was less about theory and more about practicality. Early on, she was working on her own music, having a small techno phase, then moving on to distorted metal, before making beats like a young Dylan. She was dipping her toes into all sorts of genre, and then suddenly, in 2015, all of that stopped. Alone in her Chicago apartment, Laura had just reached the precipice of a very dark time for her. and I think it's a period not uncommon for artists to find themselves in, with questions like, what am I doing here, and is this art worthwhile, boggling against self-worth and value. It can be a tough place for anyone to leave. But eventually Laura found a remedy in the form of a friend. One winter break, a pre-dropout Dylan went to Chicago to visit Laura, and for the first week of 2016, right after New Year's, they hunkered down in Laura's apartment to make music together, neither of them sure what the output would sound like. They started off producing, quote, ambient and gentle music, but they quickly decided that option was, quote, boring. Building on their shared wide and weird musical taste, they decided to scrap the ambient and make something unique, bouncing ideas back and forth and recording vocals in Laura's closet. In that 1 week, the duo would come up with the highly experimental 5-song EP, 100 Gecs. A running joke for 100 Gecs is giving a different answer to the question of their name's origin.
Seeing the number 23, well, Dylan had a dream like that. And I had a dream, a very similar 23 dream, where I couldn't stop seeing the word Gecs.
And then spray painted on the side of the building. It just said 100 Gecs. And we were like, what the fuck does that mean?
I wanted a gecko through some sort of error. I think maybe I entered it in wrong. Maybe it was like some kind of error on their end, but I was sent 100 geckos. And I was like, that would be a cool band name.
The true origin may never be known. But what is known is that for the first time in 2016, the combined beauty of Dylan Brady and Laura Les could be heard. "100 Gecs" was born in a cold, tiny Chicago apartment by two childhood friends who shared the simple and beautiful joy of creating music together. The EP enjoyed relative success in the SoundCloud underground, but arguably more importantly, it was revolutionary for defining the 100 Gecs sound to come. Today, many consider the duo to be the peak of the musical genre hyperpop, a viscous and hard to pin down category. So let's take a bit of time to dive into the biggest takeaway of this new sound. Number 1, vulnerability. Take any of the Gecs solo projects, and you can see that their music has always reflected vulnerability. Let's hear Laura Les' song, Starlight. Akin to someone screaming their heart out at the top of their lungs, these same 4 lines repeat for the entire song. And then there's Dylan Brady's haunting, "Of Course I Still Love You." Dylan's distorted vocals open up about his relationship with his dad, whom he has only seen a handful of times since he was 11.
What about you? Your folks stay together?
No.
When did they split?
11.
At 11? So you have like probably strong memories of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did
Sucked.
it sucked?
Yeah.
Did you have to like go through the whole like who do you want to live with choices?
No.
Yeah, what it was just decided for you.
Yeah.
Who'd you go with?
Mom.
Yeah.
Dad moved to Hannibal, Missouri, then Florida.
So how often would you get to see him?
I've probably seen him like 5 times since then.
See, I have a theme on my podcast, right? And it's that bad dads make for good art. And we just got to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a complex dude. Not all
Dads
bad.
are complex.
He tried hard.
Harkening back to the triumph of the weird, 2019 will become a time of songwriters putting emphasis on confronting their traumas and aspirations. And to do this, you have to be vulnerable, which Dylan and Laura are more than confident enough to do. When the duo pair up, their vulnerability is not diminished but instead amplified. Layered in between the more bizarre and funny tones of 100 Gecs, one can find the EP wrought with heartfelt and emotional sentiments. Their album 1000 Gecs acts the same way.
I'm not stronger than you.
Number 2, a blending of genres. Blending genres has always been met with backlash.
Old Town Road has become a word-of-mouth hit. It's the only song to simultaneously appear on the Hot 100, the Hot R&B Hip-Hop Songs chart, and the Hot Country Songs chart.
But now, Billboard has pulled it from the Country Songs chart because they no longer believe that the song is country enough.
Even like what happened with like bridging rap and pop punk, because when that shit first came out, like people were like cringing at it, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Tasteofcountry.com says that Swift's new song, Shake It Off, is, quote, an up-tempo pop song that will do nothing to appease her country music fans.
Journalist Mike Finty put it best when he said 100 Gecs were destined to split opinions. Listeners find not only individual albums, but individual songs encompassing many different genres from a wide array of sources. Take Stupid Horse, for example, which starts out as ska, a music genre that originated in Jamaica in the late 1950s. Later, the song will give off more rock and roll vibes. In the Gecs world, any sound can be a jumping point. Genres bashed for years by critics and the mainstream alike, like punk and dubstep, can find themselves as cornerstones of the same Gecs song. And sometimes they replace their drum kit with dog barks. Some were less open about this new style, dismissing the pair as ironic music for ironic people. Others heralded them as bold pioneers, turning pop music inside out with glee. The third and arguably most important defining point for 100 Gecs sound is their deliberate use of autotune. 100 Gecs view autotune the same way they view a piano or guitar, as another instrument ready to be played. Not everyone shares the same love for autotune, however, and this is a sentiment that harkens back all the way to the effect's invention in the 90s. Cher's 1998 hit Believe, hailed as the first song to use autotune to distort vocals, met backlash before it was even released. Cher told the New York Times that her label called the effect inhumane, and requested the autotune effect to be removed from her voice. Her response, over My Dead Body.
But I was kind of ahead of my time, so whatever.
A little over 10 years later, after artists like T-Pain and Kanye West had brought autotune into the mainstream, Time magazine, in a list titled The 50 Worst Inventions, includes autotune right next to the pesticide DDT and the cancer-causing substance red dye number 2.
Guys, the internet's crazy. I just could not deal with it.
Regardless of backlash, the 2010s proved that autotune was a mainstay musical effect. But 100 Gecs don't just use autotune, they play it like an instrument. On tracks like I Would Never Stop You, Laura's voice rises to inhumane heights and fluctuates from note to note in impossible ways. Rolling Stone views this use of autotune as neither cold, alien, or uncanny. Instead, it bursts with a kind of feeling that almost feels novel, as if giving shape to life's most incomprehensible emotions. After creating their self-titled EP, Dylan would say goodbye to Laura and head home. The two made loose plans to create more music together, but as life happens, these plans would take a while to manifest. Years, in fact. But whenever the two friends were back in town, they would hang out and play shows together. And when they were thousands of miles apart, they would support each other's music via SoundCloud, which Laura was using more of now. In late 2016, Laura Les released her debut EP, Hello Kitty Skates to the Fucking Cemetery, and it is a haunting, raw, and vivid audio painting of the trauma the young artist was going through at the time. Laura was in the process of transitioning. Laura vulnerably showcases how physically and emotionally demanding this process can be in Hello Kitty, and her future works showcase how worthwhile it can be. In 2017, she would go on to release upbeat singles like Creep for Your Bones, and eventually her 2017 EP, I Just Don't Want to Name It Anything with Beach in the title, her most successful project to date. Underground Underdogs says of the EP, it tackles serious challenges and insecurities in a really vivid and poetic way, while also sounding silly, fun, and playful. Just like with 100 Gecs, Laura wasn't scared to bring together contrasting emotions and juxtapose them in her music. On October 2017, on Friday the 13th, Laura got married to her partner Gabriel. Soon after that, she would graduate college in May of 2018. Life was starting to come together for Laura. She had garnered a small following on SoundCloud, which had just surpassed 500,000 plays. Unlike Dylan, Laura got a standard 9-to-5 job to support her music career, saying, "It makes me focus more on projects that are going to make me happy." In 2018, she released her album Big Summer Jams, full of features like Lil West, Lewis Grant, and of course Dylan Brady. It was the first album she released using the name Laura Less. On a smaller scale from Dylan's All I Ever Wanted, her album Big Summer Jams would get her noticed by a handful of musical news outlets, which would snowball into a few interviews. When asked what direction her music was going in, Laura responded, "I just throw my efforts in 100 different directions, and when I'm happy with something that manifests naturally, I put it out." One of these directions would soon stick out against the rest. In the fall of 2018, the members of an online collective called Open Pit, led by Max Sleepy Cat Shramp, had a far-fetched and ambitious idea: a free virtual music festival held in the popular sandbox game Minecraft.
It's like a real festival layout. There's stages, there's booths, there's huge sculptures that you could walk around and interact with, but it's all online.
With an online multiplayer mode that allows players to launch servers where thousands can gather and play at one time, Open Pit announced their own server where they would host the first of its kind music festival, Coachella.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and you're attending Coachella 2018.
Soon, word got around about this weird virtual social experiment.
Like, why?
Well, I guess if I want to be serious, like, I played Minecraft, like, all through, like, my teenage years, but it was also, like, just a big joke at first, and it accidentally got, like, way too big. And then we're just like, oh, I guess we have to do it now.
The Open Pit booked dozens of obscure electronic artists for the show, and Laura happened to be one of them. She hadn't really played Minecraft before, but the experiment sounded enticing, and she took the opportunity to call Dylan to see if he wanted in. Dylan was increasingly getting busier and busier in Los Angeles as a professional musician, but he always had time for his St. Louis day ones. He was in, and after a multiple year-long hiatus, 100 Gecs were getting back together, making new songs for their live virtual set. With Laura in Chicago and Dylan in Los Angeles, they built their entire musical set over email, sending Logic files back and forth, tinkering with songs until they were satisfied enough to send it back to the other person. Using email was a necessity due to distance, but due to their trust they built up over years, it was more than doable. Soon, they had their set to play.
It's happening, it's happening! This is the best thing that ever happened!
Oh, it's happening.
What the hell is going on?
What the fuck is up? Coachella?
What the fuck is that? Coachella!
Coachella, let me hear you make some fucking noise! Enter the 1,000 Gecs experience!
Woo! Formerly known as 100 Gecs.
We are the artists formerly known as 100 Gecs.
If you're feeling this, jump up and down. Hopefully we can do that.
Alright, Coachella, if you're feeling this next one, I want to see you take your axe out and start destroying the floor.
It's a crazy connection, but without the sandbox game Minecraft, it's likely that 100 Gecs never produce 1,000 Gecs, and therefore stay forever unknown. Luckily, we don't live in that world, and for the first time in years, listeners can hear a barrage of new 100 Gecs songs, many of them still sitting dormant unreleased. Eventually, the show ends, and Laura celebrates by taking her pizza out of the oven.
Alright, I think we're good. I gotta take this pizza out of the oven.
Okay, great. I'll send this file.
Okay, sick, thanks.
Peace.
See ya.
100 Gecs were a hit, especially when it came to their new song, Ringtone, and the duo got invited to Open Pit's second and bigger Minecraft festival, Firefest. Having a lot of fun at Coachella, the duo agreed to perform again, and with the months they had, they decided to make an album. This was in part due to them wanting their performance to be a novel and standout one, as the lineup featured many well-known genre-pushing musicians, perhaps none more recognizable than A.G. Cook, the founder of the music label PC Music, and a massive inspiration for both Dylan and Laura.
A.G. Cook has definitely been one of the most influential artists for me personally, just in terms of his experimental approach to pop music, to the concept of a pop star and playing with that.
I was pretty isolated in my interests, and I was really looking for people that I could connect with, and it took a long time. Met a lot of the PC music people and found people that had similar interests and skills.
When we work together, it's like such a flow. It's just like back and forth, back and forth. We can read each other's minds. It's like really, he totally gets me and I get him.
I'm A.G. Cook, writer, producer, artist, and I started a label called PC Music in 2013.
It's the early 2010s, and their internet is starting to get huge. Sound systems are coming out that allow all new sorts of sounds to be created. Skrillex has just become the forefront of the genre dubstep. Interested in the computer-themed sound coming out of this era, in June 2013, A.G. Cook founded the influential record label PC Music. It has a unique take on pop music, featuring light, digital, and synthetic textures, while occasionally entering into the more glitchy, extreme sides of dubstep. These two elements blended together to create a new sound that ultimately pushed the boundaries of the ever-expanding planet of pop music. Soon, the name PC Music would symbolize less of a label and more of a genre.
Do you remember when you first engaged with PC Music and what that felt like?
I was like, holy shit, this is it. This is, I feel like I've been waiting my whole life until this moment to hear this thing.
I mean, that's literally, that's the vibe. I was extremely depressed in my apartment in Chicago and was just like, I'm gonna go on YouTube. And I saw the Halloween mix and I was just like, dude, like depression lapsed for a minute and was just like, okay, like the ray of God beams shining down from the clouds. I was like, this is the craziest shit I've ever experienced.
Pop had never sounded so computer-like and hyper before, while also being weirdly relatable and danceable. Quickly, PC Music fell into the newborn genre of pop titled hyperpop. While 100 Gecs were about to take hyperpop to its peak, PC Music was there to start it. During the start of 2019, Laura and Dylan were constantly sending emails back and forth, cramming to get their draft version of their album 1000 Gecs ready for the January 12th Firefest show. Thanks to the duo's near-psychic workflow, every day was a productive one, with vocals recorded on Laura's AGO-free Miku Vocaloid, and production being a free-form, any-idea-welcome type vibe. Eventually, the show day arrived. With their demo version of 1000 Gecs ready, it was time to perform. Unfortunately, not a lot of footage survived from this festival, But what is known is that for the first time, listeners could hear songs like Gek Gek Gek, Gek to You, "745 Sticky, I Need Help Immediately,
I need help immediately.
I Would Never Stop You," and their set closer and most famous track to date, Money Machine. Even back then, this headbanging song stood out against the rest.
And that's when we made Money Machine. Dylan started the project.
That sound, I just found it in Logic. Thought the contrast of that to like screaming bass would be a sick kind of thing. We both like really heavy shit and we both like cute fun melodies, so try and bring them together.
I was just kind of getting in that sort of mindset of these people that I had grown up with, these like people in St. Louis talking about their big trucks and riding around in their like huge whatever F750s. I just thought, your truck isn't that big, all right? Calm down. You have a tiny little truck.
4 months later, after tinkering on their album consisting of Ringtone from Coachella, Money Machine and others from Firefest, and 3 new songs, 800 dB Cloud, Hand Crushed by a Mallet, and Stupid Horse. On May 31st, 2019, they would officially release their finished album, 1000 Gecs, to the public. Unbeknownst to the duo, the album would quickly snowball on SoundCloud and then Twitter due to the unique and weird sound the album produced. What was this new music that had just appeared in many users' timelines? According to Craig Cowman, the CEO of Atlantic Records, who would later sign 100 Gecs, it was a stop you dead in your tracks, you have to pay attention moment. According to The New Yorker, it was an album with no rules. According to 100 Gecs, it was a banger. After the summer had ended, to the surprise of both of them, they had a bona fide musical tour lined up, playing alongside Brockhampton.
Fun songs and good times.
For both Dylan and Laura, the tour was life-changing.
Or I've done things now that I never thought I would ever get the opportunity to do.
Afterwards, things would slowly start to turn back to normal, and Dylan and Laura had more time to work on their solo projects. Dylan would manage to get his group Cake Pop, full of his St. Louis Day ones, signed under the Mad Decent label, and Laura would release her successful single, Haunted. But for the most part, Dylan and Laura stayed together as 100 Gecs, and it became their full-time passion project. On July 10th, 2020, the duo came out with a remix version of their album, 1000 Gecs and the Tree of Clues, where they invited 21 artists to remix their 10-track album, and guests ranged from Charlie XCX and Fall Out Boy to their inspiration A.G. Cook and friend Lil West. Laura says of the project, it's heartwarming to have such a large community of people involved. On December 2nd, 2020, the duo surprised fans with their free-song EP titled Snake Eyes, which featured the music mainstay Skrillex. On April 24th, 2020, the two even came full circle and hosted their own virtual Minecraft show called Square Garden, where the duo crafted a stage for small and big artists to perform alike. And on April 23rd, 2022, they came full circle yet again and performed in the Bonafide Coachella Music Festival. On March 17th, 2023, they released their sophomore album, 10,000 Gecs, which has already been making waves this past month. Will it be as influential as 1000 Gecs? Only time will tell, but it's looking good so far.
Everyone, we have here one of the most anticipated follow-up albums of this decade so far. The 100 Gecs album, 10,000 Gecs. 100 Gecs consists of two artists, Laura Les and Dylan Brady, who became one of the most buzzed about music duos out there. With 10,000 Gecs, 100 Gecs solidify themselves as one of the most respectable but also ridiculous music duos out there in modern music today.
100 Gecs, from the cold Chicago apartment that spurred its creation, to the duo's creative process, to their one-of-a-kind unique sound, is more than a tale of bizarre music. It's a tale of two friends, Dylan Brady and Laura Les, who took vastly different paths of life and yet still somehow found the time to be there for one another, all along the way making music that they liked, not following any one structure or rule or genre. That simple, beautiful tale got them far. That I always miss you. And there's beauty in that tale.
I want to know, 100 Gecs, 1,000 Gecs, are we going to get to a place where it's 1,000,000 Gecs,
Yes.
1,000,000,000
Yeah.
Gecs?
Yeah. Yes.
Where does it stop? Like, where does it stop?
We don't know.
When we run out of numbers. We can count pretty high, though.
You just add another zero.
There we go.
There's another album.
There we go.
Suffocated, tired and empty, pigeonholed and overrated, even though I'm not rated high. And lately I've been thinking we can leave here, buy a ticket, tourists on a long vacation, sundresses and photographs. We could be all alone tonight. We could be something real. We could go anywhere tonight. We could change our life. We could go anywhere.
I think we're good. I gotta take this pizza out of the oven.
Okay, I'll send this file.
Okay, sick. Thanks.
Peace.
See ya.